Hello and welcome to NJBIZ Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Kanige. My guests today are Reid Brockmeier and Becky Button. They are the co-managing directors of Gensler in Morristown. It's an architecture and design firm. Becky and Reid, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, well, thanks for joining me. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. I wanted to start with just sort of your general assessment of where your industry is now, particularly because we've written a lot, NJBIZ, we've covered a lot of the changes that are sort of driving commercial real estate, architecture and design, particularly with regard to the office market, because the way and where and how people work and how they commute has been shifting. I'm curious what changes you've seen. Is that evolution still happening, or have tenants, have occupants, have employers and employees kind of settled into a routine? What are you seeing now? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? And let's start with the office market in particular, since I know you've done a lot of work there.
Yeah, I would say this is the year we've seen a lot more movement on the office market. And interestingly enough, it's not that much different than years ago with regard to people really want to be able to come to the office because they want to be there, not because they have to be there. Okay. We've also seen that the office is a much more important place for people to come to really collaborate. And again, that's been going on for a long time, but actually design has a lot to do with making sure that happens.
I would say that the office is having a moment, a really big moment, where more and more of our clients are understanding what most designers and architects have known for a long time is the place where you work, it matters. How you feel in the space matters. And so we're just seeing our clients taking a really hospitality view of what an office should be. And gone are the days of a sea of identical cubicles and everyone sits in the same kind of space all day. Because we know that people need different kinds of space to do the work they're doing. And so we're finding that office projects are a lot more interesting. There's quiet spaces, there's dark spaces, there's bright spaces, there's communal tables, there's little pods. So it's a much more varied environment to serve all the different people that need to do different kinds of work. It's exciting.
Okay, I want to hear a little bit more about all of those things, but I just want to be clear, because we've covered the office market was, especially in the pandemic, for obvious reasons, the office market was very soft. What I hear you saying now is that this year, in particular, that's changed, and the market for office spaces is picking up. Did I hear that right?
I think so.
Yeah, I would say it's picking up. There's more of a flight to quality. So movement is now starting to happen with all those that were sitting on the sideline before. So with regard to the office space, there's a lot of movement going on. And as I'm sure you've reported, there's also some of these office spaces that are they're beyond their useful life. And those are being repurposed. They're being taken down and done with something else. So things are being taken off the market. So I think there's a lot of things going on at the same time. And this year we've seen a lot more movement in that regard.
Okay. Now, you mentioned some of the things that you do, the sort of design elements that you have to bring in now. What are people asking for? What are some of the amenities? I mean, we've heard all the stories about, I mean, you mentioned the different kinds of spaces, the flexibility that the people want flexibility to come and go as they please. What are some of the most common things that you're asked for these days?
Well, food is definitely a big thing,
Okay.
which hasn't changed over time. And then that's kind of where it goes to the location of the office, where sometimes like the downtown becomes an amenity for that space. And if you have all sorts of coffee shops and different kinds of restaurants that that your staff can go to, that's a really attractive thing. But within the office, it's definitely I think we're seeing things like mother's rooms haven't gone away, or any of those kinds of spaces, quiet places, prayer rooms that you can go to be by yourself for a minute to decompress. I think there's more of a intentionality around addressing people's mental well-being in the office that we're seeing that we hadn't seen before. The individual pods for people to do phone calls, those are extremely popular. Things related to pets we see in some of our clients too, where they have, they encourage bringing pets to work, some of our clients. And so areas where the pets can be and they can be with them, that's also an interesting one.
But in general, there's so much more of an emphasis on amenities, as Becky was saying. In suburban downtowns like we are in Morristown, the town itself is an amenity. If you're out in the suburban office parks, those are being highly successful when they are really amenitized. It's purposeful, it's built, and people come. Those are very successful. So amenities is absolutely a big player now, more than it's ever has been.
Right. And it sounds like, again, to what I hear you saying is it goes beyond the old fashioned, ping pong tables and pinball machines and
Oh.
things like that. You're having to sort of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're rethinking the way these spaces come together.
Yeah, I think it's a little more like the way a resort or a hotel, like you want to have enough, you want to have places that are for everybody, right? It's not
Mhm.
one size fits all. Maybe one coffee point isn't enough on a floor. Like we're seeing clients put in multiple, and they have different kinds of coffee and they have different kinds of snacks available. Roof terraces, space, outdoor space is absolutely an amenity, more so than ever. And if it's just, pavers with some chairs, that's not quite cutting it. It's, landscaped, and there's different kinds of structures for shade, and there's Wi-Fi ability, and there's working spaces, and there's lounging spaces, and there's fire pits, and there's, it's a definitely more of a resort type of
And at the end of the
feeling.
day, variety is what it is. You have to have a lot of choice. People will not sit down and work in the same spot the entire day. They want to have choice. And some of it is quiet spaces. Oh, wait, I could do that at home. But they don't do that they want to do that all day. So having a place where you can go, whether it's in an enclosed space or an open collaborative space, they want to have choice, and they're professionals. They make up their mind how they want to work either that day or that hour.
Right. And you're seeing this. I want to talk about Morristown in a minute, but just for a second, the sort of traditional suburban office park. I mean, for example, our office in Somerset, it's a big blue rectangular or trapezoidal building that sits in the middle of a parking lot. The outdoor space is the parking lot. I mean, that's all we have there.
Yeah.
And I keep hearing that word, resort. That's the model that a lot of these suburban spaces are using, and that involves a much more elaborate outdoor spaces. Yes, I mean, and a lot more movement, a lot more mobility around the complex.
Yeah, it's almost like whenever you arrive at a suburban location like you're talking about, it's your arrival right when you come into the complex, whether it's a parking lot or not, your sequence from when the vehicle arrives, that has to be curated all the way to the front door. And a lot of times, you're right, a lot of times that's not really been paid attention to, but it's incredibly important. It's like the real estate term, curb appeal. It's all about how you feel and the experience you have from right when you enter the site.
And I think the developers out there who are thinking that way are finding a lot more success in getting their space rented out. And, that's kind of evident with the kind of what the investments they're making in their campuses. It's paying off. It's starting to really show.
And a lot of those in New Jersey, they have vision, they have creativity, they really understand what draws people into these places, whether it's out in the suburbs or it's in downtown like ours.
Okay. Well, you can see I'm not at our office in Somerset right now. I mean, one of the reasons is it's not that pleasant to be there. But just one last
Call
question.
us. Do you need help? We can call us.
Oh, I wish you would. Just one more question on this issue. Are owners, employers coming to you and specifically saying, I need to lure people back into the office and I want that. I need the kinds of things that will, as you say, to make people want to come to the office.
Yeah.
That's still what they're.
But I think it's bigger than just wanting them to come to the office. It's how do they get people to feel engaged in their work? Because, many of our clients are doing life-changing work. We do a lot of work with clients in pharma and sciences, and it's not just about getting them to show up, but it's getting them to show up and bring their best self and be able to really move the needle in whatever business that they're in. And that's the most exciting part, because it's not just about attendance. It's about, the outcomes that happen from being together.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I can see that you're more interested in this. I can hear it in your voices, how the subject kind of animates you. So let me ask you about Morristown, because I'm sitting in Morris Township, about maybe a mile and a half or 2 miles from the Green.
Okay.
So I'm familiar with the town. And you mentioned that the town itself is an amenity. What goes into that? What are the things that make, and we can see it, the kinds of construction, and you've been working on some of the buildings there, Valley Bank, the M Station, all of those things that are going in there. What is it about Morristown? What are the sort of critical amenities that make the town itself an amenity?
I think it's interesting when you go into a downtown's always evolving and changing, and it morphs and changes over time. Whether there was a lot of residential in Morristown, and now there's a lot more office, and the office itself animates the daytime activity that really hadn't been there before. There's a lot of things about nighttime activity, but it's about what we said before about having choice. It's not necessarily just choice in the workplace. It's also choice on where you go for lunch, where you go after work, how you engage in the community itself. So we've seen that has really animated the town. I mean, I'm just driving into work this morning and I see a bunch of people going down to M Station with backpacks on, and they all look like they're in their 20s or 30s, at least to me anyway. But it's actually creating the energy of what a downtown wants to be, and everybody feeds off of that energy.
And I think too, the nice thing about Morristown is that a lot of the gathering space is actually very public, and it's right, you know, you can see it from the sidewalk. So it's not all hidden behind closed doors. You have a lot of restaurants that have cafe space out on the sidewalk. And so you just get a sense of the vibrancy and the energy. People want to be here.
And I think some of these projects, oh, I'm sorry, Jeff, go on.
No, go ahead. No.
I think some of these projects also, when you're doing these projects, it's really important to give back to the community because it's also treated as a public space. You look at M Station, the buildings were set back 50 feet for a purpose. There's an esplanade, there's a public walkway that people can engage in. There's trees, there's light, there's air, and there's plazas that people can pause at. Not necessarily the people that are actually working in those buildings. It's not solely for them. It's also for the town. So that's a really important consideration when you're doing work in a downtown like Morristown.
And you can see that the street life in Morristown, as you say, it expands. It's not just at nighttime with the bars and the restaurants and things like that. I know from trying to get through Morristown at lunch hour that it's a pretty busy place.
Yeah, and it's a good formula for downtown, and a lot of folks are noticing it. It's almost the best kept secret for a while there that people didn't realize, wait a minute, this is important. This is important for the knowledge worker, that they really want to be part of the community, not just to go into an office building. So it's been a great thing to see in the last few years, and we've been very fortunate. We've been part of all of these projects.
Mm-hmm. And Morristown also does have a train station right downtown. Our transit, and before the pandemic, transit-oriented development was the sort of the thing that everybody wanted. Is that still relevant these days? I mean, is the fact that there is the train station in Morristown right downtown, you know, it's walking distance to all of the places that we've been talking about. How important is that to getting folks to come to the city, to the town?
I think the type of people you get to come here, and you've probably seen the folks that have come here, like the Santa Fe and Deloitte and Valley Bank. They really want that connection. They want that train connection because they know it's not just about their office, it's about other offices in the region and New York City. So it is an important piece as far as the success of this town, but there's many others in New Jersey that are really ripe for something like this also.
Well, glad you mentioned that. Oh, that was the very next question I was going to ask was, what are there other cities, other towns, other regions, other areas that you can see that sort of fit that model? I'm thinking maybe Red Bank, Summit, those kinds of places. I don't know, maybe Hackensack and Bergen County. Where do you see? What do you see as sort of the next? I don't want to say hot town, but the towns that have the same sort of characteristics as what we've been talking about.
I think the ones you mentioned already are being looked at. I mean, you look at Hackensack, it's a lot of residential there, but also the retail is coming up because of it. And the same thing, New Brunswick's another one. There's Montclair also.
Sure. Yeah.
And there's a lot of these towns we're doing studies on now for a variety of different businesses. And it's because of the success that they've seen in other parts of New Jersey, including Morristown, on why it's important for these multinational companies to be in these downtowns now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I know you've also done, your firm at least, has done a lot of work in the healthcare industry.
Yes.
Now, obviously, that's an important industry for the state. What are you seeing now? What's driving that market? I mean, there's been some consolidation among hospitals. There's a lot of acquisitions of physician groups. What are you seeing as the factors that sort of go into what folks want out of those kinds of spaces?
I think at the end of the day, quality healthcare is really important to anyone, and it's and access and easy access. And what we've seen is a lot of the healthcare companies, you know, take Summit Medical, for example, they're looking at different models. Like, for instance, in Bridgewater, we had a crate and barrel store that we kind of converted for Summit Health. There is Hackensack University Medical that's in Clifton. That's a ground up medical office building. So having these in downtowns is really important, and some of them are ground up, some of them are conversion. We took office to medical is another conversion that we've done. That's also for Summit in Clifton. So it's a really important part of the community.
Yeah, and I would say too, in healthcare, it's that same message of the patient experience, and from the moment that they are driving up to wherever the location is, what is their experience? And so that's a big piece of the puzzle that we're that we're working on. And we tend to bring, different kinds of practice areas together to look at that. So we have hospitality focused designers that might be weighing in on how the patient is going to experience coming to that facility. And that's a really exciting kind of, collaboration that we're doing more of.
Okay. And you mentioned conversions, and my understanding is that particularly with the medical spaces, that you especially with a lot of old, for example, unused retail spaces around. Is that still a major factor in what you're doing, what you're seeing?
Yeah, conversions in general, and everybody's talking about office to residential, but there's conversions going on everywhere, and it's a great trend, and a lot of the communities are embracing it and having incentives for it. So we've done office to residential, office to medical,
Office to hotel.
office to hotel. We've done a number of projects like that. So there's really a second life that's going on. Fairly new to New Jersey is the office to residential. We're doing a lot of studies right now. There's been a lot going on in New York City, as you may have read, but I think it's starting to come out here. And as once the numbers work for a lot of the developers, it's an absolutely viable thing to do with some of these older assets, depending on the floor plate size and if it's ideal for
and more sustainable than
Yes.
tearing it completely down and rebuilding from scratch. So if we can try to preserve some element of it, that's usually what we want to try to do.
Right. Yeah, I can remember. I worked on Wall Street, not in the financial, as a media company on Wall Street, and all those gigantic office buildings. When I was working down there, were being transformed into residences. Obviously, because housing is a premium in Manhattan, and what I hear you saying is that dynamic is starting to come across the river. Is that right?
It is. It's starting to come across the river, which is really encouraging to us, that's happening. And there's a number of projects that we're looking at right now. Again, it just starts with small studies, but it eventually ends up being a real project.
Okay. You mentioned sustainability. How important is that I'm thinking to employers, to building owners? I mean, is it still again, before the pandemic, it was a major focus, and then everybody got distracted and had to do other things. Is that coming back now, or are owners still interested in those kinds of issues?
Yeah, I think it's still very important, and I think it's more, sustainability is one word to use. Resilience is another way to think about it, because when you're investing in something that's going to be here for a long time, I think more and more of our clients and owners are looking at the long-term effects of what that's going to be. And so it's something that we're very happy that most of our clients are a lot more well-versed in sustainable and green practices and resilience. And it's not us completely just educating them. I think probably a lot of architects are finding that that's the case. So they're coming to us already with a directive that they want to create a very resilient building or whatever it is. And that's wonderful, because, we believe strongly that we have a role to play in making like reducing carbon emissions and reducing what's in the landfill. Most of it comes from the construction industry. So we take that very seriously. And we're happy to see clients and landlords looking at it also.
And it does, and even if there's a client that says, I really embrace sustainable practices, but I don't want to pay any extra money for it. A lot of our specifications now are built as such. So there's just lots of things you can do that doesn't necessarily cost extra money, but it also being conveyed to your company that you are looking at sustainable practices. So we kind of look at every project that way.
Okay, well, that was the next question, was the economics of it. Number one, are people willing to pay for it? Number two, isn't there? I mean, especially with the cost of electricity being and what we're going to see this summer, there must be some imperative to kind of save money that way and make these buildings more sustainable in that regard. Yes.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is our technology now is such that we can run studies so much quicker and easier to understand what it means if all your windows are south-facing and if you don't have the right kind of overhangs and things like that. So we can actually show data to our clients to help them make informed decisions about how they're going to build something. And it maybe there's a slightly more cost day one to build it, but over the long run, it's going to actually cost less money. And those are the kinds of things that we're spending a lot of time doing with the different programs that we have developed to be able to look at that really quickly.
Because at the end of the day, it's our clients' money. It's not our money. So we give them choices, and depending on what it is, they determine if it's of value to them.
Okay. Finally, before I let you go, I'm curious as to what you see are the main challenges coming up for your industry over the next, say, 12 months or so. A lot of business owners and executives that I talk to are concerned about where the economy is going. There's a little bit of uncertainty there. What do you see? What are you expecting? What are you anticipating? What are you planning for over the next, say, 12 months?
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of every client's different, right? And they all want flexibility and they all want to have choice in what they're doing. Sometimes leases are coming up and they're like, should we just extend a little longer and kind of take it down the road and see what happens? They're all looking at what each other is doing. And I think in the last year and a half, there's a lot of companies that have made the move, have done the project, have actually realized the effect it's had on their business to change what they're doing and to go into a new space. So that what we do is, we're a global firm, but we can't be global unless we're local first, but they expect us to bring the benchmarking of what other clients are doing around the US and around the world. And then they make their own decision. Do we really want to do that now? Do we want to have the same amount of space or less space? So we kind of helped them through that. I think that's the biggest challenge on some of our clients. They're not really sure if they want to do it right now, but we're seeing more and more clients are like, okay, now this is the time. We can't really wait on the sidelines.
Or they're realizing it's never going to be calm.
Right.
We don't know. It's very chaotic right now. And we haven't actually seen anything stop necessarily as of today, as of May. What is it? May 20?
Yes.
May 29th. Yes.
But who knows, right? But so I think that one of the things that we've definitely gotten more adept at is the fluidity of decision making and just like what happens and going with the flow. And we may have already issued CDs and now some new information comes out and they want to change something. And so I think that's one thing that's been very interesting. And the firms and the teams that can be flexible and nimble are going to come out on top.
And they want flexibility. Like, we don't really know what we're going to be like in 5 years. In the old days, it's like, we know exactly what our plan is 5 years from now. We're going to have this kind of growth. Flexibility has to be built into all of our projects, as people really, as you stated, Jeff, don't really know their future yet. There's no crystal ball anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, flexibility, that seems to be the watchword these days. I hope you come back and tell us a little bit more about what you're doing and some of your newer projects.
Be happy to.
Great. Thank you very much. Reid Brockmeier and Becky Button of Gensler in Morristown. Thanks again for joining me.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having us.
And thank you all for watching. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.